There were hundreds of snakes inside this well. Hundreds of years ago, this place was a torture chamber. And it gets even more fascinating. At the bottom of this well lies a tunnel that leads directly to the sea. For more than 1,000 years, our heads were sent through it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why people have claimed for centuries that screams can still be heard here at night. This is one of the world's oldest dungeons. A young emperor, overthrown from the throne, died here. Before their deaths, foreign nobles carved their names into the walls using sharp stones they found inside their cells. And according to an ancient legend, those very stones may be hiding a secret that has remained buried for centuries. Stay with me, because this castle is hiding more than one dungeon. Now, in the place we have entered, it would be almost impossible to see anything without powerful lights. I can only imagine how terrifying the complete darkness must have been for the people who were imprisoned in these dungeons hundreds of years ago. The humidity here leaves a terrible feeling in your throat. It is genuinely difficult to stay here for long. I cannot even describe this dampness. The combination of moisture and darkness alone is enough to send chills down your spine. And I haven't even told you the stories connected to this place yet. These stones are incredibly cold. They are wet and covered with moisture. Even a prisoner who spent only one night here must have suffered greatly. Visitors who came to this well threw so many stones into it out of curiosity that, eventually, the well became completely filled. Today, this well is covered with the cage you see here for safety reasons. Centuries of history now lie buried beneath those pebbles. This well is one of the most disturbing things in this place. According to legends and myths, after prisoners were kept in the dungeon and lost their lives, their remains were thrown down here. The tunnel at the bottom of the well was said to lead directly out into the open sea. They disappeared. No grave, no trace. Only a name carved into a wall remains, if you were lucky enough to leave behind even that small mark. I want you to take a look at this. This is not just an inscription. This place is known as the Tower of Inscriptions. It got this name because prisoners carved their names into the walls before they said goodbye to this life. The prisoners held here were not only local people. There were captives brought from many different parts of the world. It is known that Hungarian nobles were imprisoned here for a very long time. These Hungarian nobles were held captive here for exactly 3 generations. One of those 3 generations was Mihaly Szilágy, who was executed in 1460. Nearly a century later, in 1555, György Bonamiszer shared the same fate here. The last Hungarian prisoner recorded in history was Antal Esterházy, who was kept in this dungeon from 1698 to 1699. Before finally being released, he carved his own name into the stone. Shortly afterward, he died in exile, and his name is still here today. I wonder what he would have felt if, while writing his name on this wall, someone had told him, "Oh, one day, someone will come here and tell your story in a YouTube video." It is known that this dungeon was mostly used to hold nobles or envoys. In fact, according to some accounts, this place was more comfortable compared to many other dungeons. Still, the dampness here is honestly making my throat itch. It feels strange to think about this. Think about it for a moment. Centuries ago, a man, perhaps in the final days of his life, carved his name into a dungeon wall, hoping that maybe one day someone would remember that he existed. And somehow, it worked. Right now, we are saying his name. That is such a strange feeling. This is the creepiest well here. This place is known as the Snake Well. According to legends and myths, the well in this dungeon earned the nickname Snake Well because of the reptiles that were supposedly gathered in its depths. Prisoners kept nearby claimed that they heard hissing sounds echoing through the stone walls at night. Prisoners were sometimes lowered into this well to force them to confess their crimes. At other times, different methods involving scorpions and other forms of torture were used. Today, there are no snakes at the bottom of this well. Instead, modern visitors have thrown coins into it. A well that was once filled with screams and the sounds of snakes centuries ago has now almost become a wishing well for modern people. What do you think about those who throw coins into this well? The iron grate placed over the well provides a safety measure. Outside the dungeons, we see another, different well. This is the 3rd well here. After hearing the stories of the other wells, this one also seems like it might have a frightening story. However, this well is much more innocent than the others. It was used to carry water. When I look inside to see what is there, I can see that it is completely closed off. Let's take another look at the dungeons inside. Come with me. This dungeon cell has no windows at all. The air inside is damp and heavy. Thanks to the lighting I brought with me, it has become a little brighter. The person who stayed in this cell would even have to relieve themselves somewhere inside this small space. If they were lucky, some dungeon rooms had small windows. These windows looked out onto the courtyard that all of these dungeon rooms faced. When you step outside the dungeon towers, you are greeted by a view of the sea. On one side, there are prisoners who forgot the outside world while looking through the tiny windows of these cells. On the other side, just a few meters away from them, there is this breathtaking view. Life is truly strange. There is a legend told by the people of Byzantium. According to the story, during the Byzantine era, a pagan prisoner was tortured here. Unlike the others, he had trained himself to endure pain, and his resilience only made his captors angrier. As a result, the torture became increasingly brutal until, unable to endure it any longer, the man shouted a curse in Latin. The words attributed to him say that the souls of everyone tortured in this dungeon would remain trapped within these walls until Judgment Day, and that when that day came, they would all rise together and demand justice from those who had wronged them. The people of Byzantium claimed that on certain nights, voices, screams, and sounds resembling ancient Latin could be heard echoing from this dungeon. It is also said that generations ago, Eastern Roman guards stationed here refused to patrol certain corridors alone after darkness fell. The story sounds highly mythological and difficult to believe. Places with an atmosphere like this almost always have legends like these. But that is the strange tragedy of this place. Somewhere between folklore and forgotten records, real people spent the final months of their lives in these rooms. Some were emperors, some were regents, others were soldiers who found themselves on the wrong side of a war whose name no one remembers anymore. The legend of the curse attracts all the attention, but the names quietly carved into these walls are the part we know is real. To be honest, I got chills in every room we entered throughout this video. A long time ago, before this place was restored, visitors explored these dungeons by candlelight. Even with the modern lighting, these rooms were incredibly dark. I have to admit, I don't think I could have walked through them carrying only a candle. The video may make them look brighter than they really were, but in person, it was much darker. In this video, we explored a real medieval dungeon together. This is my very first YouTube video. I hope you'll join me as we continue visiting forgotten places from history like this one. If you'd like, in the next video we can descend into another forgotten dungeon in a different city. If you want to support this series and help me keep making videos like these, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'm Eileen, and I'll see you in the next one.